Welcome to our YouTube class on human respiratory system. The human respiratory system is a complex network of organs and tissues that work together to ensure the body receives the oxygen it needs and expels carbon dioxide. It is crucial for the process of respiration, which involves both breathing and the exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, between the air and the blood. Anatomy of the respiratory system. Upper respiratory tract, nose and nasal cavity. Air enters the respiratory system through the nostrils and passes through the nasal cavity, where it is warmed, humidified, and filtered. The nasal cavity is lined with mucous membranes and cilia that trap dust, pathogens, and other particles. Pharynx. The pharynx, or throat, is a muscular tube that serves as a passageway for both air and food. It is divided into three regions: nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx. Larynx. The larynx is located below the pharynx and contains the vocal cords. It serves as a passageway for air and helps prevent food and drink from entering the trachea. The epiglottis, a flap of cartilage, covers the larynx during swallowing to direct food and liquid into the esophagus. Lower respiratory tract. Trachea. The trachea is a rigid tube that connects the larynx to the bronchi. It is lined with cilia and mucous membranes that trap and expel foreign particles. The trachea is supported by C-shaped cartilaginous rings that keep it open, bronchi and bronchioles. The trachea splits into two primary bronchi, each leading to a lung. The bronchi further divide into smaller bronchioles within the lungs. The bronchioles end in clusters of alveoli, pleura. Each lung is enclosed in a double-layered membrane called the pleura, which reduces friction during breathing. Alveoli. Tiny air sacs at the end of the bronchioles where gas exchange occurs. Alveoli are surrounded by a network of capillaries where oxygen diffuses into the blood and carbon dioxide diffuses out of the blood. Mechanics of breathing. Inhalation. The diaphragm contracts and the rib cage expands, increasing chest cavity volume, reducing pressure in the lungs, and pulling air in. Exhalation. The diaphragm relaxes, the rib cage contracts, reducing chest cavity volume, increasing pressure in the lungs, and pushing air out. Gas exchange. In the lungs, oxygen from the inhaled air diffuses across the alveolar membrane into the capillary blood, while carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood into the alveoli to be exhaled. In the tissues, oxygen-rich blood is transported to tissues where oxygen diffuses from the blood into cells, and carbon dioxide, a byproduct of cellular respiration, diffuses into the blood. Regulation of breathing, medulla oblongata and pons. The brainstem contains respiratory centers that regulate the rate and depth of breathing based on the levels of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the blood. Chemoreceptors. Located in the medulla, carotid bodies, and aortic bodies, chemoreceptors monitor the levels of carbon dioxide, oxygen, and pH in the blood, and send signals to the respiratory centers to adjust breathing accordingly. Common respiratory conditions. Asthma, a condition where the airways become inflamed and narrowed, leading to difficulty breathing. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a group of diseases, including chronic bronchitis and emphysema, that cause airflow blockage and breathing-related problems. Pneumonia, an infection that inflames the air sacs in one or both lungs, which may fill with fluid. Lung cancer, a type of cancer that begins in the lungs, often associated with smoking or exposure to carcinogens. Respiratory volumes. Tidal volume, the amount of air inhaled or exhaled during a normal resting breath. On average, this is about 500 milliliters in adults. Inspiratory reserve volume, the additional amount of air that can be inhaled after a normal inhalation. This volume is typically around 2,100 to 3,200 milliliters. Expiratory reserve volume, the additional amount of air that can be exhaled after a normal exhalation. This volume is usually between 1,000 to 1,200 milliliters. Residual volume, the amount of air remaining in the lungs after a maximal exhalation. This volume cannot be voluntarily exhaled and is about 1,200 milliliters. It prevents lung collapse and keeps alveoli open for gas exchange. Respiratory capacities. Inspiratory capacity, the maximum amount of air that can be inhaled after a normal exhalation. Functional residual capacity, the air remaining in the lungs after a normal exhalation. Vital capacity, the maximum amount of air that can be exhaled after a maximum inhalation. Total lung capacity, the total amount of air the lungs can hold after a maximum inhalation. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more informative videos.